mushrooms this time. I know a lot of times we'll do all these different sides for Thanksgiving or try to show a healthier alternative for some of the favorite dishes. But this time, let's switch it up altogether and talk about mushrooms. In front of me, as you can see, I have an array of different types of mushrooms from shiitakes to creminis, portobellas, lion's mane, king trumpet mushrooms, miyakis, and each one of them have different flavor profiles, but also health benefits from something like this, which is a rashi that is actually good to help with sleep. We have uh, what we're going to be using today, which is actually trumpet or king mushrooms, portobellas, lion's mane. That's actually great for mental health. And this is a different way of actually adding protein to your diet without all the meat. I know a lot of people are being more health conscious as far as how much red meat they're consuming. So let's switch it up altogether and show you different ways of using this as meat. So today we're going to talk about scallops. I'm a fan of real seafood scallops, but I have a friend of mine who was actually allergic to seafood, which made me help me come up with the idea of using these king mushrooms to turn these into scallops. One of the little tricks that I found out and I knew that it was working well was when my daughter, she's a seafood fanatic. And I had made some. I didn't tell her what it was, and she snuck behind me and ate them all, talking about it was good. Then I told her it was mushrooms, and she was gonna have a fit. But that's all right. That's how good they were. So to start out, we're gonna make a compound butter. To start out with the compound butter, what we're gonna do is we're using actually a vegan butter. So it's about a fourth of a teaspoon, but you want to make sure there's room temperature so it actually can be softened because otherwise it's not going to work. Now, when it comes down to a compound butter is nothing but just combining different ingredients inside of the butter. All right. So all I'm doing right now is just softening it up. So I had it sitting out for maybe like 45 minutes ahead of time. And I just want to move it around to soften it up a little bit. From that, I'm going to add my garlic, which is about 2 cloves, and a little bit of my parsley. And then from there, all we're going to do is just mix it together. And as you see, everything is combining together, hence the whole compound butter. Now, from this, what you could do, if you want to save it to use later, you can always bring it all together like this, mold it, and then just wrap it in some saran wrap. From there, you can just slice little disc, and you'll have it for at least a good 3 months. But you can add anything that you want to the compound butter. I've done where this one would be considered like a garlic butter one. You can actually do one that has red wine in it. You can have one that has lemon in it. Um, the idea of compound butter is endless. So whatever makes you happy. But at the same time, we're not going to use a lot of it, even though it's vegan butter. We're still not going to use a lot of it. It's just going to add just a little bit of more flavor to our scallops. So I'm going to set this to the side. Now I am using a cast iron skillet. So I've already preheated my skillet in the oven on 350, and it's been here for about 45 minutes. Now, scallop, I mean, king mushrooms. As you can see, there's all different types. But these are the ones we're going to use to actually make the scallops. Now, they have a small cap on it in this long stem. The bottom part of the stem, you really don't want to use, okay? It's going to be a little bit too tough and too hard. So what we want to do is just take that piece off. Then we're going to take off the top cap. Now, we're going to save that cap because what we're going to do is use that later on. Take the cap off. Take off the hard part of the stem. And you'll be able to feel it. You'll feel the difference in it. From that, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut my mushrooms into disc. It's gonna look just like a scallop would. Just like that. Slide it over, do it again. Now, one thing you want to remember, even when you're cleaning your mushrooms, you do not want to actually clean them underwater. For the simple fact that mushrooms soak in a lot of water. So putting them underwater will actually take away from the texture and the flavor profile of it because it's starting to dilute it. Now, I have my scallops here. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually take a paring knife and I'm just gonna make small little slits in it. So all I'm doing is going straight down with just the tip of the knife. Then I'm gonna turn it and make almost like little checkerboards. This is gonna help for the cooking process, but also it's gonna actually give it a nice little design for the top of the scallops. Just like that. So once again, and I'm only doing it on one side because this is gonna be my presentation side. Turn it. I'm gonna go a little faster this time. And I'm gonna go at a different angle. Doing these more on a diamond shape. And we'll see the difference once we cook them compared to the square to the diamond. The only thing different is I'm still making the same initial line. I'm just turning this halfway and then going in it sideways. Just like that. And you're not trying to actually go too far in. You're just kind of piercing the flesh of it. Just like that. And one more. This was just for fun. Let's just go ahead and we're gonna do a different design altogether. Just a little curvy swivel line in this one. All right. So all my mushrooms have the slits in them. Now from this, what we're gonna do is we have our pan already up. See, I got to the smoking point. Now, when we're using cast irons, me myself, I prefer using it under gas. But my house doesn't allow that, so we're using electric. That was one of the reasons why I actually put the pan in the oven first to heat it up, because it's a great inductor of heat. Once it's hot, it will stay hot. So you saw the smoke coming off. That's just letting me know I have already pre-seasoned my cast iron pan. Only thing of pre-season is just meaning that last time I used it, I cleaned it, wiped it down, I oiled it, and salted it just to keep it seasoned. Now, from this, what I'm going to do is add a little bit of this right here, which is actually a garlic onion oil. And it was very simple to make. All you do is just take a few garlic and onions, skin and all, just cut it up a little bit, put it in a pan with some oil, and slow cook it. Slow cook it until it starts to brown. Then from that, I put it in the blender. I cooled it down, put it in the blender, and then strained it. And that's what I was left with. So pan's hot. And we're gonna go ahead and add our mushrooms. Now, the thing about mushrooms, like I was saying earlier, how they soak up so much liquid. So you're gonna have to watch them just to make sure that the pan doesn't go dry or anything like that. But I'm trying to make sure they all have room in between them, so that way they actually will sear and not start sweating. A little bit more oil there, and we're just gonna let them go for a second. And what you start seeing is they're gonna start browning right around the edges. I kind of like to rotate them around a little bit because I don't know about you and your stove, but I know with my stove, sometimes one side seems a little bit hotter than the next side. So I want to make sure it gets a even color on it. They're starting to brown. Let me show you this one. See how it's starting to brown up? Now, the thing is, what can you have with scallop mushrooms? Same thing you have with regular scallops. For this class, we're actually going to use a little bit of couscous. That's a regular whole wheat couscous, and then we have two that's mixed in, a carrot couscous and a spinach couscous. And it's just going to give it a little bit more color as well. But I mean, you can make this with a pasta um, over some brown rice. There we go. Super easy. And you see how they're getting golden brown. Add a little bit more oil. And if you notice, I didn't even season them yet because we're going to season them at the end, just so they can actually get the right color. And a lot of times, salt will pull out moisture, and I want to add it to the end to soak in the seasoning compared to extracting it out. Rotate them around. Now, this is a great appetizer you can have around Thanksgiving time, um, or even as an entree, especially when people, I know nowadays, as far as with the economy and everything and inflation, a lot of prices of things have went up, scallops in general. Um, but you can go to your local farmers market, and nowadays they have them. You'll look for king mushrooms or king trumpet mushrooms, and you can have them thinking that they having real scallops. I'm about to show you this other one. These mushrooms right here, they're long. They're called seafood mushrooms. I'm gonna show you here too. Seafood mushrooms. So in this case, when you cook these actually give off a seafood taste to them. All right, so you can get your seafood taste without having seafood. Especially for the ones who have been allergic to shellfish and things like that. All right, check the bottom of them. They're almost there. And to check the doneness of them, all you have to do is just press them. You will feel the difference, and it's going to be a slight little resistance back, but they're they're pretty much ready, especially these small ones here. Straining off the rest of the oil. Now, from that, only thing left is to turn off the heat. And what we're going to do is add our compound butter. Now, we do not want to add the compound butter while the heat was still on, because what's going to happen is, instead of us making almost a creamy sauce with it, it's going to break down the butter and separate it if the heat is on. So all I'm going to do is just swerve it around a little bit. Let's put these two back in. And now all we're going to do is do a slight little base to it. And basting is the only thing you're doing with basting is actually taking the liquid and throwing it back on top of it, of the protein itself. So that way the flavor goes to the top as well as the bottom. And that's all it is to it. Now, from this, what we're going to do is bring over my pan. Right here. This is the couscous that I was telling you about. And couscous is nothing but, it's another name for it. It's called pearl pasta. Now, there's two different types of couscous. It's actually one is going to be very fine, and then you have this one here. But this is the one I was telling you had a little bit of some couscous that was made out of carrots and spinach as well. And then from that, you're going to take scallops. Just like that. And then a little bit of our compound butter. And drizzle over it. Last but not least, I'm going to finish off with just a little bit of salt, just at the end. A little bit of fresh cracked pepper. A little bit of lemon juice. And lemon zest. And the lemon is just going to add a little bit of brightness, freshness to it. And there you have it. You have mushrooms, scallops. Take a little bit of these. And that there you go. You have your mushroom scallops here. Look just like scallops. Now, other things you can actually do with the mushrooms itself. Say, for example, you don't have the mushroom scallops or something like that. You can always make something that's like a ragu. What we're gonna do is we're gonna have a saute pan. We're gonna heat that up. And then what we're gonna do is take the caps that we was talking about earlier. And we just gonna slice them. I'm gonna use some other mushrooms as well. We have some shiitake mushrooms that's gonna be woody. But the thing is, the stem on these, every mushroom you cannot use the stem. These stems are very too tough to use. So if you ever wanted to use these stems, it'll be more to add flavor to like a broth or something like that. So you just and they come off pretty easy. They just pop. You can actually see the line right here, and all you're doing is just pulling on it, and it comes right off. So we got the caps from our king mushrooms. We have some shiitake mushrooms. Everybody should know what these are. These are standard, common button white mushrooms. I'm gonna take a few of those, and everything's gonna get sliced except for these right here, which are oyster mushrooms. Oyster mushrooms are one of my favorite mushrooms, but they're very delicate. So you don't even have to chop them. It's just more of just pulling them apart. Once again, the stem you really don't want to use. You just want to pull them apart and then just tear them. And they'll just come straight apart. Just like that. You see how easy that is? Now, you can't do that with these. It'll be a little bit harder. So all I'm going to do is tuck my fingers back, slice them. I want to keep my oyster mushrooms separate from everybody else because the oyster mushrooms, with them being so delicate, they're going to cook the fastest. So those will be the last ones I actually put in. Just like that. Be white. And it's okay to just, when you go to the grocery store, just sometimes just grab some new mushrooms and try them out to see which ones you like the best. And the thing about mushrooms are kind of like how spinach is, where it start out like a lot, but then it once it start cooking down, it's not as much as you thought it was. So you can always go kind of crazy with how much you have. Just like that there. And if you can see the different shapes of the mushrooms right there. All right, so I got another saute pan heating up. This time I'm just using a regular olive oil, not an extra virgin, just a regular olive oil. And what I'm gonna do is add my mushrooms first. We're gonna come back with a little bit of garlic, green peas, spinach. But what we want to do, start out with what's gonna take the longest first. And with my pan being hot already, I want to make sure that my garlic doesn't burn. This time we're gonna hit it with a little bit of salt. This is just a kosher salt. It's probably like a little bit about half a teaspoon. A little bit of fresh cracked black pepper. What I'm gonna do is add a little bit of oil to the bottom right here, just to this corner, because I want my garlic to start cooking a little bit, just to open up. And you can start seeing how the shiitakes and the buttons are starting to cook down some. Now, once they're about to this halfway cooked, we want to go ahead and add our oyster mushroom, because they're not going to take nothing to cook. And I have some baby spinach here. Now, you can switch it out with some kale, arugula, even a mixed blend. And see, the spinach is going to add a lot more moisture to it. Once it starts cooking down, it's going to start releasing the water content that's in it. And if you can really smell it right now, you can smell what I was saying with the shiitake mushrooms, giving it a woody or earthy smell. And this is just a few green peas, just frozen green peas. And then we're going to hit it with some pesto. Now, pesto, nowadays you can find pesto in a lot of different ways. It normally has pine nuts in it, parm, basil, oil, and cheese, farm cheese. I'm sorry. Yeah, farm cheese. But nowadays you can find it that has nut free and things like that for anybody who has some kind of allergy. Finishing off just a little bit of garlic powder. That's it. Turn the heat off again. And this would be a great side for Thanksgiving. It can also be an actual entree. All you have to do is just change the cut of the mushrooms. We're just gonna finish it off with a little bit of lemon juice. Now, at this point, if you've been doing everything that you should have been doing all year long, you can add a little bit of cheese or something like that to it. But we want to keep it pretty simple, just like that for right now. And this would be like a side of mushroom ragu. And this actually has 3 different types of mushrooms in it. Now, last but not least, it's something that I was on a vegan trip, in the sense of I was eating pretty clean and I was trying to find different ways of eating without having any real meat in my life. And it came out with a mushroom, portobello mushroom. So now when it comes down to portobello mushrooms, this is another one where you have these, you have a hard stem there. And what you'll do is this right here are the gills of the mushroom. Something like that to actually stuff the mushroom. What you'll do is you'll just take a spoon and just scrape it out, just like that. And you don't have to be forceful or anything like that. Just kind of like scrape it along the sides and it'll all come out. Once I did this, all I did was add a little bit of salt and pepper, a little bit of olive oil, put it in the oven for about 20 minutes. And then what I did from that was I took the stems that we was talking about earlier, just like the cap from the mushroom, from king mushrooms, and I stuffed it with a little bit of arugula and a little bit of Parmesan mozzarella cheese. Yes, we did use a low fat one. And then from that, this is just a little bit of tomato basil sauce. And we're just gonna add that to the middle right there. So now you have almost like a little pizza. A mozzarella pizza is, I mean, a mushroom pizza as well. You could have stuffed it where you could actually grind up the mushrooms more to make it more of a meat texture, even though it's gonna pretty much taste like meat with it in this form right here. You can actually chop it up and make the meat into almost like a bolognese or like a spaghetti sauce. There's pretty much endless things you can do when it comes down to mushrooms because mushrooms take very well to pretty much anything. Add a little bit of color. These are just a little bit of chives. Just to the top. Almost give it a Christmas feel with the red and the green. So there you have it. You have a stuffed mushroom here that's been stuffed with some shiitake mushrooms, some cremini mushrooms, portobello. You have we can call this like a wild mushroom ragu, which is shiitake mushrooms, button mushrooms, king mushrooms, oyster mushrooms with a little bit of sauteed spinach, green peas, and basil pesto. And you also have your oyster mushroom scallops that's been slit. As you can see, you can still see the slits in it. And it came with a compound butter that was actually a vegan butter, lemon juice, parsley, and garlic on a bed of couscous. What y'all think about that?
I loved it, chef. I loved the whole presentation. Everything looks delicious. Um, Esther, do you have any comments? Did you enjoy the cooking demo? Let's see. There,
Look, I understand. Look, I went to the Cal Farmers Market this morning, and I got there at 5 till 9, and there was a line that was almost wrapping around the building. So I understand everybody's out trying to get their last minute groceries and things like that. Miss Esther, I'm glad that you joined us. And I hope you can learn from this how you can use mushrooms in a lot of different ways.
No, thank you, Chef Reggie. There's no comments or any messages in the chat from Esther, but um, from the DAA, thank you so much for joining us. I know it is a busy day today. Everyone's getting their last minute ingredients. This was an awesome presentation. I did record this. This recorded will go on our YouTube channel, so our members and participants can go back and look at it.
All
Thank
right.
you again for joining us today. I have your recipe. I will also be posting that on our website just so people have access to it. Those that couldn't join us today can look back at it on our website. Other than that, if you have any more tips that you want to share with us, Chef, you are free to do so. If not, I feel like we can end it here a little bit early, but
The
it's
only other thing I was gonna say was at the bottom of that recipe, there's actually a list of different type of mushrooms. I believe I put about 11 different ones on there. Not saying that that's the only 11 that you will find, because there's probably hundreds of different type of mushrooms. Please, one thing, if you see them in your yard, please don't eat them. Um, I wouldn't recommend doing that. But because we don't want you to have any kind of poison or any kind of trips or anything like that. But there's a lot of health benefits from the mushrooms, and it's something that's easy to add to your diet without taking away a lot of the stuff that you normally enjoy. That's the only thing I wanted to let them know.
gotcha. Noted. Um, I'll make sure to add that at the bottom of the recipe. That
Okay.
that's not just limited to all those mushrooms. But thank you for being detailed with it.
No problem at all. Anything for the class.
All right. Well, happy Thanksgiving to everyone, to you and your family, Chef. Esther, happy Thanksgiving. We will be closed tomorrow, but we'll be back on Friday. This recording will be out probably either later today or Friday. So just keep an eye out on that. But other than that, everyone's free to go. Thank you again so much.
Thank you. And y'all have a blessed and safe Thanksgiving.
Thank you.